How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. This is a show about movies, and my name is Chad. With me is Eric, and this week we are going to be coming at you with another movie review. This time we are going to be discussing the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Old. And as
I
we were
thought we were going to
discussing,
be reviewing Old Boy.
I will. You know what? I wish. I love the original Old Boy, not so much the remake, but
That's true.
that's a discussion for another time. But yes, we're going to be talking about Old, and it was actually, as we were talking about before we got on, this was the first movie I saw in theaters since January of 2020 when I saw 1917, and I mean it was pretty much what a theater experience is. There wasn't there was some annoying people around us that weren't really watching the movie, and I it was good to be back in the theater. And
there's even not giving anything away, but there's like a second where there's a baby crying off screen in the movie,
yeah.
and I'm like, God damn, who the fuck brought there? But then I'm like, oh, it's a movie, ha ha ha, it's the movie,
Right.
They got. But I had that experience where I'm like, wow, come on.
So you thought that it was an actual child?
I don't know if it was like a Dolby sound thing or whatever, but it was like coming from behind me, and I was like, oh.
That's how realistic the Dolby surround is, folks. You think you're in the movie.
Nope, it's like now when you see a movie in theaters and a cell phone rings in the movie, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like
Well,
I think
in terms of cell phones, I feel like I can always tell when it's the generic tone.
Sure, yeah.
Usually, but usually the people I'm around are just people that are like discussing the movie amongst each other, which is also annoying.
Of course,
in this case, it was a dad who brought his two teenage sons, and they were doing commentary on exactly what was happening throughout the movie. And I can channel it out to a certain degree, but my wife cannot, and she gets very annoyed, which is what happened in this case.
Movies are back, guys. The movies are back.
That's right. See, this is what I'm talking about. Where's Alamo Drafthouse when you need them?
The power of movie going.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, this was the first movie I saw back at theaters, and the way things are looking with the Delta variant, this might very well be the last movie I see in theaters for a while, because if the situation in the country and the world gets worse, I can't see myself taking too many more chances. Obviously, everybody else has their own view on it, but this was just a rare case where my wife and I had a night without the kids and elected to go see a movie. She actually wanted to see this, so all the stars aligned. But who knows? I never got to see Fast 9, and it's already on streaming. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about in a previous episode. If the window is this short, everybody's going to start asking themselves the same question that we do, which is, well, why go into a theater?
Yeah, I didn't even realize Fast and Furious was already available.
Well, it's like not available to own, but like it's available as theater at home or whatever. So it's $20 to rent. But anyway, so let's get into Old here. It premiered at Lincoln Center in New York City on July 19th and was released theatrically on July 23rd. To date, it has grossed $50.9 million worldwide on a budget of about $18 million. This is Shyamalan's worst opening weekend, but it is obviously profitable right away. So it was adapted from a Swiss graphic novel called Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy and Frederick Peters. So as far as the plot goes, it is a vacationing family that discovers a secluded beach, and it turns out that where they think they're going to be relaxing, the beach is somehow causing everybody on the beach to age very rapidly, reducing their entire lives into about a single day. So,
you ever been to Florida? That's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. So this is Shyamalan's 14th movie that he has directed, and his career obviously has had a lot of ups and downs. Our next episode, we're going to talk about his career in a little bit more detail. My expectations of this, just before we get into our thoughts, my expectations of this were pretty even keel, to be quite honest. I knew what it was about. I knew it was coming out. I didn't really give it too much thought because I just had so much else going on in my life, so I didn't pay attention to it. And I don't really look at his releases like I would say in the era of Unbreakable and Signs. Um, so because of all those ups and downs, I knew that this was coming out. I would say that his career is getting a little bit better as of late, but you know so I wanted to see this, but I was not expecting a masterpiece or anything like that. um as far as what I thought of it, in short, and we'll get into more detail, I will just say I don't think it's his best. I don't think it's his worst. um I so Eric, what did you think overall? Show over after that?
Uh, I mean, I guess I would agree with you in that I stopped getting too. I feel like now we have two camps who are either like very for or against M Night Shyamalan movies, or like I'm
Right.
seeing some of his older films, which we'll talk about, getting reappraised in years past, and a little bit further removed from just being known as like the twist guy or
Right.
the next Spielberg as or Hitchcock and blah 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 blah, all that hype stuff. Um, but I don't see this as yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm dancing around the fact that no, I don't think it's all that great, and it's mostly from like writing stuff, which
Mhm.
has also been very up and down in terms of his adaptations and writing himself, which I
Right.
kind of wish he would do less of. But yeah.
Well, so overall, I might give it a marginal passing grade, um, simply because I did enjoy, a good bit of it. There were parts that I didn't like. I would say, from in terms of flaws, the thing that I probably had the biggest issue with would be that the acting was kind of all over the map. Um, Specifically, there's there's a person with a calcium deficiency, and that would probably be my least favorite character of the film. And that the sequence involving that character is just hilarious in its execution when it gets to that point. So I thought that the acting was a little bit, kind of all over the place. But I mean, you're led by Gail Garcia Bernal, who is almost always consistent. At the very least, there's obviously a lot of other people in this, and it's an ensemble cast, I guess. So overall, I thought that it was moving along swimmingly. You see the threat.
There is a lot of swimming in the
Yes,
movie too, by the
yes,
way.
yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Um, it does move along. You see it kind of escalating, and the tension is kind of growing as it goes along. And as is the case with a lot of Shyamalan's movies, it kind of gets down to the ending and what we think about the ending, which I thought was okay. I guess I wasn't blown away by it, but maybe part of that is there's an issue with the writing, and maybe other part of it is that we expect still
Mhm.
certain things from him in terms of an ending. Um,
I
but
almost I wonder if he almost like feels that as well. If like he's almost like boxed himself into a corner because yeah, I do feel with this one that when it does have like a big, well, not a big twist, but there is an explanation, if you will.
right,
It almost felt a little, I don't know, shoehorned in there, as if it needed to explain
it,
what
it,
how logically this was happening, if you
you
could.
described it well in that you called it an explanation, really, instead of a twist. Like, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really wouldn't really describe it as a twist. It is kind of an explanation, and it almost is like village-ish in a way, in terms of what happens. It does kind of come out of left field. I mean, it is interesting. It brings up, conversation pieces when you really look at what happens, without spoiling anything, obviously. Um,
And especially that he shot the film during the pandemic when
right.
we're supposed to be trusting scientists and experimentation or medicine or vaccines and stuff. I don't know. It felt like a subcurrent there.
I mean, they play it a little vague in with the rules of the beach and exactly how
I still
things
don't really get it. Yeah.
got to the way they were. And like, I'm willing to suspend disbelief to a point. You know, I realized it's like, okay, this is the premise. You know, you have to accept the premise to a certain extent, and they tell you a little bit here and there as to, you know, what's going on at the beach, but they don't give away too many details. They don't, you know, which is maybe to its detriment. But what like I will say this though, I really did like the premise. I thought the premise was interesting, and the idea of aging really fast can be really scary. You know, as I'm sitting here now, it reminded me of a movie from the '90s that I watched called Thinner, where
Yeah, yeah,
the guy just progressively gets thinner.
yeah.
And the movie was what it
But
was.
yeah,
But
that is a whole genre of at least for like the makeup and effects team
okay,
of like a whole genre of that.
yeah.
Where we've all seen bad old makeup on actors and good old age makeup, etc.
I will say, yeah, you brought up the makeup. The makeup is it is better than J. Edgar. Can we agree on that?
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. The makeup is pretty good. I mean, and also it's smart to in two big cases for to the children
Right.
use different actors.
You kind
You
of, yeah,
know,
you kind of have to, yeah.
and yeah, and for the adult actors, it's pretty subtle, I would say, for the most part.
Yeah.
It's pretty subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, they do a good. So, what did you think of the premise? Did you enjoy the premise at least, or did you just have a problem with where it went?
No, I enjoyed the premise, and I think that's essentially why I keep coming back to his movies overall. Because I think there's always a really good hook to
Yeah,
them. And I think it always has so many possibilities from the outset. And like, you know, people always say like, oh, it's a very Rod Serling Twilight Zone sort of thing, right? You know,
right.
and you get a group of people together, and they start turning on each other. It feels a little, I don't know, George Romero feels like there's always like a lot of potential there. And that's all. And I always am optimistic, caught with caution.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think once that kind of dissipates, when the actual act of watching it becomes not as fun, I guess,
right,
because it is asking you to take it quite seriously.
right.
And there are some times where I'm not like there are. Would you say like there are moments that are played for comedy, but
Oh
then
yeah,
but yeah, but then there are moments where it's a little, and then I'm not sure if this is a choice or not, where you mentioned the uneven acting, where I'm like, everyone's doing a very different acting style. Like everyone is on some other, you know, I don't know. They're all in their own rooms acting alone, and then it seems like they were all put together.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
can
I'm like,
agree with that.
yeah, so I'm like, is that intentional, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just very disorienting, and then yeah, and then I just I get kind of bored. Um, then when it becomes I can't trust you, I can't trust you. You know, who are you really? Who are you know? Then it's like, okay, I know we've seen this a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does get to that point where you kind of there is like there has to be certain people that are villains. You know,
Yeah.
you have to root for certain people, and you know, who do you trust, who do you not trust? It, and yes, we have seen that before. I thought that the main family were effective enough as people you're supposed to sympathize with. Um, I obviously there's some surprises there regarding those characters that eventually come out as well towards the end. Um, but yeah, I would say that I thought where it went, the twist, the ending, the explanation that they gave was maybe not perfect. It was. I will say I thought it was thought provoking at the very least. It does make you ask questions, you know, as to where what something like that would be like.
And yeah, I would say for the family, I was actually I'm willing to go along with it, but it was a little weird that they all are different uh ethnicities, and they I thought that was like also going to be a part that like um I don't know. It was very. It did not seem like a family. In the general, they didn't seem like husband and wife. Uh, at times, like, and I know there's supposed to be tension with the
Yeah,
character running in,
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I
but
think that would probably be the explanation.
yeah, but
But it
you never really buy that they're husband and wife, or at least
it
I
is
didn't buy that they're husband and wife.
the chemistry is odd, and I suppose that could be chalked up to a little bit anyway to
Yeah,
the fact that the characters are on the outs. But it is very multi-ethnic family, which I suppose is something we're probably going to see a lot more of.
yeah.
In
No, I just mean like I didn't even the kids didn't match the parents either, which I thought was weird. Like the whole thing was
well,
just,
the boy I thought was fine. Like the girl doesn't look like she belongs in that family really. Like
yeah.
I it is what it is. But yeah, um,
If you know the actress Polly Draper, that's Polly Draper's son, who's Hereditary now. Alex Wolf has become known.
so yeah, let's talk about some of the actors. So other than Gail Garcia Bernal, we have Vicky Creeps, Rufus Sewell, Alex Wolf, Thomasin McKenzie, Abby Lee, Ken Leung, and on and on and on. M. Beth Davids. So there's a
The
lot.
best character, I mean, in the best name ever is Midsize Sedan. Uh, I mean, that should be its own spinoff. We did an Unbreakable spinoff of that whole that
Like
character who shows
he,
up, and that's another thing where I'm like, I feel like it's like almost ripe for a joke, and they
right,
almost imply it and go with it because it's like, you show up to the beach and there's this African American man just wandering there, and then this like dead white blonde woman shows up on
right.
shore, and he does make a joke about it, but then it's like it goes deadly serious again. And
Yeah, no, it is, and
they
his
do
character
reference that the dynamic, and then they just never.
his character is one that I thought had a lot of flaws. Although Midsize Sedan is a great name of a rap artist, and I think that should be taken by somebody. But I thought his character had a lot of problems. I wouldn't really label this movie as being too manipulative, except for maybe that character. I thought like was really they're trying to steer you in one direction, and then when you learn more about him, it's like okay, you know. So there's not much there, but they want you to think that there's a lot more to him.
Yeah, and if he's so like, because the main daughter in the film, she is a big fan of him, and
Right.
I'm like, so if he's a big fan and he's missing, wouldn't this be like on the news? Like, wouldn't
Right.
that
Well, yeah.
like wouldn't people be wondering about him? Like,
I guess yeah. In his case,
ever?
I guess he was only there for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, no, yeah,
I mean, but he dies. Oh, sorry. That's not really a big spoiler. All mid-sized sedans die eventually. The warranty is low. But yeah, I mean,
spoiler.
so there are some things about it that, if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, I'm just like,
And
okay.
and that's the case I think with a lot of Shyamalan's movies, where if you spend too much time thinking about it, then you start to ask all these other questions. In this case, I suppose you could maybe get past the fact that well maybe he was only there for like a little bit longer, maybe people don't know he's missing yet. If I'm playing devil's advocate, that may be what I would say. But yeah, so um and I some of the I would say there's a few twists and turns as this movie goes on, certainly with the kids, which again some parts are intended for comedy, certainly. Other parts are, as you said, very serious. So the tone is kind of maybe not as smooth as it could be, but
Yeah, and it does suffer from or maybe enhanced by what we call like the Hulk effect, where for the young girl, they as she gets older, they do have her do a costume change, but they don't with the young boy, and so his shorts just grow and get older with him, which I guess is the Hulk cliche, right? That
I
he
thought about that too. Yeah,
and I kept waiting for a joke about that, and it didn't come. So I'm like, oh, okay. He goes from a little bit of spoiler, but from like a 6-year-old to like a 50-year-old or what have you,
right.
and he's the same shorts, the same pants. Whereas for the daughter, they have the mom give her different
Maybe they
clothes.
just have really good elastic, Eric.
I mean, he's incredible shape at age 50. I'll say that. But
Yeah.
even so,
If only we could all stay in that good of shape you
I,
know,
I was gonna say, even as he gets older, he still looks pretty young. I mean, it's pretty, good genes, I guess.
yeah. Well, so cinematography wise, I thought it was a nice film to look at. Um, and it will make you think twice maybe about going to some of these all inclusive resorts. You know,
Yeah, the cinematography I actually thought was pretty creative. Like it seemed like pretty handheld, and that was cool. Like when the children um, are revealed to be an older age, another stage of their aging. And if they do an actor switch, usually like they'll be introduced from like the back, and
right.
you'll hear like a new voice, and that's the new actor playing the voice. So it is before we even see the face for a while, for a couple seconds or so. So I do think some of those like framing choices um, are actually pretty clever. And people have cited the Greek cinematographer whose name I cannot pronounce, but his name is on the list of dead people in the laboratory, if you will,
Right.
in the last act.
So yeah, I mean, this film, talks a lot about deals a lot with relationships and how people change over time, and so those are some of the underlying themes that you see there that are pretty interesting, I guess. But overall, Eric, would you recommend this or no?
No, I wouldn't recommend it. I would say that there is a better movie in there, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not so much. But what I really do like, I think M Night Shyamalan is a really good actor. Funny enough, at least in comparison, like he's the most natural by far, and he's the most. I don't know. To me, it was the most effortless actor.
Yeah, I will say when you see him very early on, and
I
he
get
is
to laugh because he's a celebrity now, and he even introduces the movie. Like,
he is one to be in all of his films, and when I saw him, I was like, oh.
yeah,
But he
yeah,
has a really prominent role, so it's like you can't get really mad at it. It's not a gratuitous cameo. It's not just
yeah.
there for show. Like he actually has a good important role. So yeah, no, his acting wise, he's always been okay. Sometimes his cameos feel a little bit forced, a little bit shoehorned. In this
Yeah.
case, I don't think that is the case. But
Yeah, once I discovered, like, yeah, when we first see him, he's like the driver that's taking them to the
right,
beach. Like, I'm like, oh, this is like kind of a lame cameo. But then you realize, okay, like he comes back around. Um, but yeah, I don't think it took as long as it needed to go to show us that yes, you may have a lover who commits adultery, but in the end, we all get Alzheimer's, and is it really that bad? Like, I don't know. You're not going to remember it anyway when you're 80, so just stay with it. There's some moments I thought are a little weird, shoehorned. There's a interesting um, reference to the Missouri Breaks in there about Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando.
yeah,
Why? Sure, why not? What movies do that? No movies do that. So
yeah. It's so
why
yes,
not? Why not?
Rufus Sewell's character, and whenever you see him, much like Mark Strong, you know that there's a pretty good chance that he'll be one of, if not the bad guys.
The guy that talks about Missouri Breaks. I mean, every time I
Yeah,
see him,
yeah.
that's
You
and I
always
think
expect those Missouri breaks, comments. It's just
as soon as he shows up, I was like, oh gosh. Uh, but yeah, I think it just takes too long to get to where it's going and what it's saying. You get a very very vain character because why? Because she's gonna get uglier later on, right? Like the characters. One has a seizure. We know where that's going. It's all spelled out very quickly, and then it feels like it takes a while.
hmm.
In my opinion, and there is
Well,
not so much to look at. It's a very small beach, and it's not. They literally can't go further. That's a plot point too, because they black
right.
out, and so it's just back, back and forth.
Right. And you know what? I don't disagree with some of what you said there. In terms of it being too long, I would agree that it probably could trim off some time, and maybe be a little bit more streamlined. But overall, I would probably give it a slightly passing grade, simply because I enjoyed it for the most part. I wasn't blown away by it. I thought it did have some issues, mainly in the performance department, but certainly there was some story script issues as well. But overall, I thought that it was okay. I think that Shyamalan's career. I read a quote where he's kind of okay with the fact that he's probably just going to be making thrillers for the rest of his life. Whereas at one time, you probably couldn't say that. There was certainly some times in his career where you wondered what direction he was going to take. But we'll get into that the next episode. But yeah, so I guess we're split here, which is probably the first time
Hey,
that that's
hey,
happened.
that's another Shyamalan movie. But we'll talk about Split later. Yeah, I mean, Shyamalan, that's another thing about Shyamalan. He has great titles. I'll give him that.
Yeah, very very succinct titles. It gets your attention.
If you love puns, you could just go through his whole IMDb page and just have a great day.
This was a movie that had a good title and a good trailer. He knows how to draw you in for sure. And sometimes those expectations are met, and other times they might not be. I would say this is probably middle of the road for him, and certainly that's better than what he was at before. So
Yeah, and I guess sorry, just last thing about it, the thing with me that made it, I guess, feel very long too was that I never knew how they could escape their situation. I
right,
mean, like
right,
because at one point they can try to swim away from the beach, but then a character finds out that you can't,
right.
because the current is so strong and whatever the riptide. So then I never knew, like I couldn't be so invested because I'm like, okay, so what happens if they go one way, they black out and they wind up back on the beach, they can't get off the island, where do we go? To me, it doesn't
Right.
really build in the same way. Like, yes, characters get older, characters die, there's conflict between them, but
And I will say some of the resolution there I didn't see coming. I didn't, I'll say, yeah, I'll say that without going into too much detail. In terms of navigating the island and some of the realizations they come to,
yeah.
I didn't
And
see all of it coming.
yeah, they have some line about like you had to like give up your passports or whatever, because like again, like, well, if they did not make it home, like I feel like that would be on the news, perhaps, maybe. I mean,
Right.
but who knows? I mean, it is Philadelphia, as the man says. No, I am from Philadelphia, which got a good laugh for me. He
I was
always
really
got.
hoping that we would pan out and see Bruce Willis sitting at a bar. As
No, we don't get that, but we do have she looks a little bit like Amanda Seyfried, Clint Eastwood's daughter, as the lady who has the let's say dangerous cocktail that she gives the people who arrive on the island.
right,
Uh,
right, right.
but
But no, this is not another installment of the Unbreakable Split franchise.
not yet, but
It could
we
be.
don't know if you there's going to be some Easter eggs, I'm sure.
Well, let us know what you thought of Old, and if you saw it in the theaters or not. Our next episode, we're going to be delving into Shyamalan's whole career and going over some of our favorite and least favorite films of his. So make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you'd rather listen to us. And for Eric, my name is Chad, and we will see you next week.